Reunion. The year is 2027.
Good morning. My name is Michael Souza. I called yesterday. I am here to see Captain Souza.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Mr. Souza. You spoke with me. I am Georgina Estes. Please call me Georgie. I told the captain he was having a visitor today. As you asked, I didn't mention your name. He is outside on the grounds with his wheelchair. As you will see, we are fortunate to have very large grounds with a lake and wooded perimeter. We can't always keep track of the captain, but he doesn't wander away, so we don't get too concerned. He lets us know when he is going to see the wizard, as he says. I see you share the same surname. Do you mind me asking if you are related? We like to keep track in case of an emergency.
I am the captain's oldest son, but please keep that confidential between us, if you will, Georgie. We haven't communicated for many years, and it might complicate matters for him to know who I am just now. I'm sure he won't recognize me with beard, glasses, bald head, plus extra pounds. I'm here to see if he will let me write his biography, so I'll need some time to see how it goes. I'm sorry to ask your cooperation in this deception, but I'll be using Sabino as my last name for now. Meanwhile, please call me Mike, all right?
Of course, I'll see to it, Mike. The captain has seldom had visitors in his 10 years here at Heritage Pines. Just a few old Vietnam squadron pals who call themselves the Pukin Dogs. I wasn't aware of any near relatives.
Oh yes, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters by a different mother. Plus, the captain has 10 grandchildren, not to mention several ex-wives.
Goodness, Mike, I had no idea.
Unfortunately, we have not been close or kept in touch, partly because his 31 years in the Navy kept him moving, including 6 Vietnam tours. Then, 3 days after retiring, he set sail for Europe aboard his sloop Wings. He left my life just after I was born, and I've seen him only several times. He and my mother were married only a year and a half and never lived together. So, as usual in these cases, he got the blame. But there are always 2 sides to the story, aren't there? I'm here to get his.
Yes, Lord knows there are always 2 sides. What a shame. I do hope it goes well, for both your sakes. Will you be in town long, Mike?
That depends, Georgie. Perhaps several weeks. I have taken a room at the Waterman's Inn and hope to visit daily. How is he?
Oh, quite well, really, for all his 94 years. He is a bit frail, as you would expect, but trim and relatively fit. He uses the wheelchair around the grounds, mostly as a walker and to have a chair with him. His eyesight and hearing are good. He is doing well on medication for a kidney condition and for slightly elevated blood pressure. He is on his 3rd pacemaker for atrial fibrillation. Mentally, he is alert. His Pukin Dog squadron pals affectionately say he is as grumpy as ever, though they do get on with some hell-raising here. One of them, JB, tends to get a bit frisky with the ladies, but the girls easily keep their distance. I hope you don't mind searching the captain out yourself. We are short-handed, and I like to stay near the office. Just follow the yellow brick sidewalk to the edge of the woods. You'll find him as far into them as he can get with his wheelchair.
It was as Georgie said. There was the captain, well into the tree line in his chair, covered with a Scotch plaid blanket, obviously asleep. But there was something quite unusual about the scene. Either the wheelchair had a very high seat, or the captain was floating motionless in midair, nearly 3 feet above it. It was hard to tell which, since the blanket hung down long enough on all sides to conceal the space beneath him. Not wishing to disturb the scene and to understand the sight, Michael stopped 20 feet away, remaining silent and motionless. But the captain stirred, apparently aware of a presence nearby. Fighter pilot instinct, perhaps. As he slowly awoke, So did the captain slowly descend the space between himself and the chair. He had indeed been levitating. By the time he was fully awake, the captain was normally seated. "Who are you? Why are you sneaking up on me in my sleep, just when I was having a great flying dream?"
Very sorry, Captain Souza. I was just trying to avoid disturbing you. My name is Michael, but call me Mike. I am the visitor Georgie mentioned to you.
"Well, Mike, do you have a last name?"
Mike Sabino, sir.
"No need for sir. Call me Captain, okay?"
Yes, sir, Captain.
"Am I supposed to know who you are?"
No, Captain.
"Then what do you want with me?"
Well, Captain, I am a writer doing research for a book about Vietnam.
"What's that got to do with me? You don't look like a writer. What have you written?"
Nothing important, only job-related stuff. I'm just getting started with serious efforts.
"Kinda old to be starting, aren't you? Not your first career, I take it. How old are you, Mike?"
Yes, a late start. I'm 72.
"I have a son your age named Michael, a liberal lawyer with no sense of humor. I told him a joke about a spick over 30 years ago, and he hasn't spoken to me since, just because his mother's name was Rodriguez, and he was raised to be in denial. Odd for him to think I'm biased since my father was born in the Portuguese Azores Islands, which makes me sort of spick myself. At least the Navy thought so. What's your daytime job?"
I am a retired attorney captain, but I enjoy writing.
"So let's start over, counselor. What's this got to do with me?"
Well, Captain, I wanted to learn to fly but never took the time. I sometimes fly with my friend Philip, who has a 1948 Aeronca Champion, and he lets me fly it a bit when he is with me, of course. Now I am interested in writing about Vietnam-era Navy carrier pilots as a last of a breed, since piloted conventional military airplanes and aircraft carriers are nearly history.
"Why carrier pilots, Mike?"
I've read that night carrier landings were the most dangerous and challenging thing ever done routinely with airplanes.
"True. Every night carrier landing was as hard as the first one. Nothing routine about it for the guy in the cockpit. More tension than being shot at, the docs discovered. You say you want to fly, but haven't done much about it. Obviously, you don't want to very badly. It's still not too late for you, though. I flew my Jamango motor glider until I came here. In fact, I still have it in my hangar at the county airport. As they say, it's all in the doing. So tell me why I should spend time with a wannabe who says he wants to write about flying. Anyhow, who the hell cares to read more old war stories about Vietnam? You'll never sell it."
You may have me there, Captain. Truth is, I have lived a very ordinary life. One town, one job, one wife, 3 kids, and retired. Not much adventure. I always hoped to live aboard a sailboat and cruise the islands, so I'd like to know more about what I missed. In fact, I am not so much interested in Vietnam as I am in the colorful naval aviators who lived it. I'll publish and peddle the book myself if I have to, if not your story, someone else's. However, if it can be your story, I suggest we co-author the book. You'll get the glory and we'll split the profit.
"Yeah, sure, right, Mike. Glory and profits. All I have to do is live another 10 years and then figure out how to spend it all. One more time, Mike. Without the bull, why me? And how did you find me?"
Okay, Captain, here it is. When I Google searched Vietnam Navy fighter squadrons, I got over 4,000 hits on the Pukin Dogs, even though it appears that the squadron never did anything historic, name and logo only.
"Why pursue it then?"
Surely there had to be more than a name in bad taste, so I dug deeper on the internet. I finally found a reference to the Pukin Dog Dognet, moderated by SecDog, J.B. Souter. I corresponded with him and wrangled an invitation to meet up with him and other San Diego dogs at one of their occasional dinner get-togethers. I don't have to tell you how it went. I was told that JB was in his usual fine form until the management, accompanied by a bouncer, asked us to please leave. One of the lady customers objected to his forward behavior. The San Diego dogs have to change watering holes frequently. So I came to understand the old fighter pilot adage, which earned the pukin' dog's fame for epitomizing, if you can't be good, be colorful. In fact, I would have chosen JB as my book subject, but he says he is writing his own, which I'm told he has been claiming to be doing for 50 years. Another pukin' dog who would have been an interesting subject was Engine Eddie Davidson, but he shuns alcohol and has already written his own books of memoirs and poetry about Vietnam. Plus, I just thought a teetotaling poet was too unheard of for an authentic fighter pilot, especially a pukin' dog, so I asked for JB's recommendation. Since you may be an elder survivor and you were back and forth to Vietnam for the entire 11 years, plus have some quite colorful personal history of your own I've heard about, here I am.
Well then, Mike, you will be disappointed to hear that I have written some poetry myself. Even had one published, but never a book. I'm not much of a colorful drinker either. Just how long do you think you can hang around this fancy old fart's farm for your project?
As long as it takes, Captain. I'm staying at the Waterman's Inn.
This could take longer than I have left, Mike, so let's just give it a day or two and see what happens. Is that a recording gadget you have there?
Yes, Captain, right here, ready to begin.
There's a bench over there. Give me a push. Where do you want to start?
Tell me about the dream you were having when I arrived.
I told you I was flying.
What type of airplane?
No airplane, just me.
How were you able to do it?
Willpower and concentration.
How high did you go, and how far?
Not very high or far, Mike, because it's difficult to keep my attention fixed on the focused concentration it takes when you're having that kind of experience. Even in a dream, I'm too old to take a fall when someone sneaks up on me. Might scare me to death.
My apologies, Captain. What if you could really fly? What if you actually perfected levitating yourself into the air anytime you wanted, without risk, and could fly as far, high, and long as you wanted to?
Awesome. Close, I think, to what astronauts feel on their spacewalks. Probably very similar to my dreams. No doubt, it surely would be the greatest adventure of my life. On the other hand, there very likely would be severe complications.
How so, Captain?
Think about it, Mike. What if I strayed away from Heritage Pines? Georgie would have a fit. Worse still, what if I was seen in public, an old guy floating around the countryside?
I see your point. It would be headline news around the world, and the media would make your life a never-ending nightmare. So, Captain, I hear you saying that you don't really want to fly badly enough to actually do it?
Up yours, Mike. Maybe you're enough of an ass to have been a fighter pilot after all.
That's what my wife and oldest daughter tell me.
Of course I want to fly, Mike. It has been the dream of my life. But I'm no closer to it than I was 90 years ago, and there's no time left. So I guess the dreams will have to do, won't they?
But suppose you could really do it in a limited way, in a secluded place, with help from a trusted friend like JB, perhaps.
JB? Good God, Mike, he'd write a book about it for sure. Go on TV talk shows and lecture tours, probably with my pickled remains on stage with him. But of course, he would very soon kill himself, or be killed, autographing the thighs of adoring women.
Well then, Captain, someone else thought it would be very hard to expect anyone to keep secret such an incredible feat, accomplished only once before in history.
Yeah, Mike, and look what they did to him just for walking on water. Anyhow, it's only a dream. A good one, though. Mike realized that there was going to be much more to this visit than getting to know his father and writing his story. He might help the captain to consciously experience his miraculous feat. Perhaps divine inspiration would assist. Meanwhile, there was a long story to be heard.
Have you dreamed of levitating before, Captain?
Many times. It began when I was 4 years old, though not exactly in dreams per se. I had frequent earaches that kept me awake nights. I found that rolling my head back and forth on my pillow would put me half asleep, and I could partially control my dreams. At first, from my bed, I saw myself up in the far corner of the ceiling, in the fetal position, looking down at myself. I learned to elevate myself, not often successfully and not for long, but well and often enough that I came to believe I could actually do it if I believed strongly enough and practiced a lot. It was a special area of my consciousness that was difficult to find and hard to hold on to. To test my progress, I often stood on our bathroom scales and concentrated very hard on lifting myself. But awake, I was never able to get to that special consciousness or budge the dial at all. When I was 6, my tonsils were removed and the earache stopped, so there was no need to roll my head to sleep. Just the same, I kept it up for years because of the flying dreams I could create. Awake, I tried to imagine what it would be like to see clouds from above them, especially during intense summer nighttime thunderstorms. Unfortunately, though, a few years later, I outgrew head rolling and lost the dream control ability. After all, appearing to be shaking your head no is not the thing to do when you're in the sack with a young lady, is it?
No, Captain. That would certainly be counterproductive. So did you also give up the possibility of actually levitating?
No, Mike, even today I still strongly believe it's possible. But now I have to rely on random dreams. I feel that I lack enough willpower or confidence. Otherwise, I would have accomplished it. I was an insecure only child and an obvious disappointment to my father, who was a traditional dog-face army sergeant. In his eyes, I was afraid of everything, a coward. One day, Father stopped at an airport and said we were going flying in a friend's airplane. It was the first airplane I saw up close. As we walked toward it, I became enthralled with the prospect of my actual first flight. Of course, Father had no idea who owned the airplane, nor did he have any intention of flying. He just wanted to scare me. Instead, it was just the kind of life-changing, divine inspiration I needed.
How did you feel toward your father about that?
Not much, one way or the other. It was the 30s, the Depression was on, and a buck sergeant's pay didn't cover the bills. Mother was a professional seamstress, sewing nurses' uniforms at home. Besides playing trumpet in the 5th Infantry Band, Father played with dance bands and the Portland Symphony. He was also a poker dealer at night, so we didn't see much of him. Still, I felt enormous tension in the house and believed that I was somehow the cause of it. I was already looking forward to my escape from home. Are you sure you really want to hear all this boring ancient history, Mike? None of it has anything at all to do with Vietnam, does it?
Please bear with me, Captain. It has to do with how you came to be a naval aviator. Were you soon able to get that airplane ride your dad promised?
No. In fact, it turned out that he was deathly afraid of flying himself. It was not until after the war, when I was 14, and had saved enough money from my morning paper route for a 10-minute ride in a Piper Super Cruiser at a small grass strip in Columbus, Georgia.
Until then, how was your interest in flying sustained?
Father sometimes took me to the band quarters at Fort Williams. The musicians had fun seeing if I could make sounds on various wind instruments. My first success was a note on a flute, earning me the nickname E-flat. One of the men was a model airplane builder, and Father brought many of them home for me. At first, they were small, carved, solid balsa models. Then there were larger balsa stick and tissue built-up rubber-powered flying models, which I thought too much of to risk flight damage. Instead, I wound the propellers, got my eyeball as nearly inside the cockpit as possible, and pretended to fly inside the model around our small efficiency apartment.
Tell me about your other interests besides flying, Captain.
Girls, God, movies, and music, in that order, Mike.
Girls, at that age?
Oh yes, I was fascinated by them. The first time I saw the nude figure of a woman, I was astonished by her beauty. Her skin was as white as snow and faultlessly unblemished. I gazed at her entranced for a very long time. She was a statue of a Greek goddess, I guess, about 8 inches tall, on the table in our front room bay window. I was about 4 years old. The day after admiring it, the statue disappeared. It was forbidden? I had done something wrong? Of course, my curiosity was set ablaze. Searching for the hidden statue, I found a big, thick, hardbound library book in the hall closet with color cross-section illustrations of the inside of a woman's belly with a baby in it. Wow, fascinating. No doubt about this being forbidden fruit. I was sitting on the floor inside the closet, door closed, with a flashlight, pondering the medical truth of creation, when Mother opened the door. I don't know which of us was more embarrassed. Nothing was said to me or reported to Father, I think, but of course the book went the way of the statue, never to be seen again, which only further heightened my curiosity. It was time for some serious field study. The first time I recall getting out of that apartment, about age 5, I ran across the street and found a 5-year-old girl to play "You Show Me Yours and I'll Show You Mine" with. Amazing. Sure beat the hell out of statues in medical books. Soon I found myself in a circle of 5 more similarly inclined, sinister little boy and girl perverts. The highlight of our evil ways was when we found an abandoned, fire-damaged apartment building nearby, where we reveled in freeing ourselves of all garments and danced about in primal abandon. The end of it had to do with the complexity of buttons on children's clothing in the 30s. Tops and bottoms with suspenders were hopelessly complex, interconnected with way more buttons than necessary, and were primitive hindrances of free expression for a 5-year-old to deal with, to put ourselves back together for home re-entry. Mine was an especially impossible outfit, which defied reassembly, so I came home all disarranged. Of course, as mothers always do, mine immediately recognized what had happened. But to her everlasting endearment, Mother simply rebuttoned me and said nothing about it to me. More than 60 years later, I told Mother the story to see if she noticed or remembered. She had a good laugh and held her index finger to her lips. Shh, don't say anything about it to your father. Our little secret. There were few girls to play with for some time after that.
What about God, Captain?
Father was an old-world authoritarian, raised a Catholic in the Azores. Having married outside the church, he said he was no longer in good standing unless Mother and I converted. But Mother was a New England Seventh-day Adventist, which led to many very heated religious arguments, since both church dogmas preached that their way was the only way to salvation. Mother endured a lot of mental abuse from Father, but she always held her ground on issues important to her. She took me to church Sundays, often read the Bible to me, and taught me prayers, one I still use. Dear God, please hear my prayer this evening. Thank you for a lovely day, for the tasks that I have finished and the time I had to play. Please take away my sins, dear God, and help me to be good for Thee. Bless my family and my friends, and tonight watch over me. I was so well grounded in deep religious belief that I had an imaginary conversation with God when I was 5. He asked what I wanted most in life. My response was wisdom.
Have you had other imaginary conversations like that with God, Captain?
3 that were important. We'll get to those later, Mike.
Sure. Were your parents able to adjust to their religious differences?
If you call not attending church or ever discussing it much after we went to Panama an adjustment, yes. Mother, however, never stopped reading her Bible. She even wrote notes in the margins and composed several poems, though she was far from being evangelical about her religion.
How about school? Was it a welcome escape from home?
Lord, no, it was from the frying pan into the fire for me. It was awful. Right from the beginning, I hated it. I got off to a bad start with a hateful teacher the very first day in kindergarten, and because of my insecurity, I never adjusted well. Ever after, it was them or me, with teachers and the school system seen as obstacles. Because of our frequent moves, I attended 14 schools. Each move meant new curriculums and social challenges. I was an easy target for bullies, and I was academically lost most of the time. I was a slow learner with a bad attitude, a C student. I still have nightmares about exams not prepared for.
Tell me about that first day in kindergarten, Captain.
As much as I wanted to be out, I was too insecure. Mother had to take me by my hand into the classroom and seat me at a desk. This did not go unnoticed by my teacher and classmates. When the day finally ended with the sound of the dismissal bell, I leaped from my desk and started for the door. "Be seated, children. I will say when you may leave, not the bell." We obeyed teacher, and the minutes dragged on. It seemed we were to be confined there for the night. It was more than I could bear, and I began to cry. I guess Father had reason to be disappointed in me. Taking the opportunity to unite the other students on her side, the teacher led the class in singing "Cry Baby Cry" to me. From then on, I disliked school, teachers, women, and my peers. I had all the makings for being a paranoid sociopath. I believe that many kids like me suffer permanent humiliation and ego damage from failure to adjust to the school system. There's no escape since school is compulsory, so the result is rebellious social behavior.
Were movies an escape for you, Captain?
Yes, I suppose they were, Mike. I was allowed to go to Saturday matinees on my own. Usually there were double-feature cowboy films with cartoons and serials like Superman. I often stayed for 2 cycles. I liked the songs the singing cowboys sang. At home we had a wind-up Victrola and a record of Roy Acuff singing "She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain," which I played many times over.
How long did you live in Portland, Captain?
In 1939, Father was transferred to the Panama Canal Zone. Mother and I moved in with a family in South Portland. There I was given a small black and white kitten to care for and began ice skating after school until dark on a pond with small trees growing through it, very picturesque. There were 2 gangs at school, but since I was a member of neither, I was bullied by both. I spent weekend afternoons at the movies watching films like Frankenstein and Gulliver's Travels over and over until Mother retrieved me. A few months later, we followed Father to Panama. There, the model airplanes reappeared, but then started coming unfinished. That was the beginning of my lifelong model building hobby. I never knew who gave me those models, but he was a major influence on my life. At first, we lived so far off base that I missed almost a year of school, so I had to repeat the second grade. The Army still had some cavalry horses, so I took horseback riding lessons on base. Chubby, my first assigned horse, was short and stocky. The last time I rode him, Chubby laid down and tried to roll over on me, so I picked up on some Army stable language. One day, Father had an alarm clock apart on our dining room table when I left. When I returned from the stables, Father was still working on it when I casually asked, "Are you still fucking around with that clock?" I swear, Mike, I have never seen a more shocked expression on a person's face. Of course, I had no idea what the word meant, but that ended my time around the Army stables. We finally settled into base housing, Skunk Hollow, at Albrook Army Airfield. At that time, Army was flying outdated P-26 pea shooters, and the pilots were doing their best to bang them up. We could tell when there was another accident because cavalry's get back on the horse thinking was to mass launch every plane and pilot on the base. The upside for me was the aircraft salvage yard, where I went every afternoon after school to play in the wrecked airplanes, a big step up from pretending to fly models.
How did you feel about the possibility that pilots may have been seriously injured or killed in those wrecks, Captain? Didn't the reality of mortal danger in aviation affect your desire to fly?
No, Mike, fear of death never occurred to me in an airplane except in the back end of airliners on low visibility landing approaches in rough weather, worrying if there might be some ex-naval flight officer at the controls.
Is that fearlessness usual with aviators, Captain?
Yes, Mike, not only usual, but essential. If fear takes over the controls, that pilot should be grounded. Of course, that does not mean that risks are to be taken lightly. As they say, there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots. Flying teaches humility, since there are thousands of embarrassing ways to screw up. The survival trick beyond great gobs of luck is to always be aware of the risks and your own limits. The hair-on-fire Cavalier hot pilots don't last. One of the unique things about naval aviation was that night carrier landings are a great equalizer. Everyone had a bad night occasionally, and all his squadron mates got to watch it on live television.
Yes, Captain. I can see how the challenge and scrutiny would keep egos in check. So life in Panama wasn't so bad for you.
Not bad at all. My parents worked. It was the big band era. In addition to the Glenn Miller type classics, Latin music was increasingly popular, with stars like Xavier Cugat and Carmen Miranda. Father led the 5th Infantry Band's 14-piece dance band out front with his trumpet like Harry James 2 or 3 nights a week at the Officers' Club. Mother went along to keep an eye on his female singer. I was glad to have the evenings home alone. By her own admission, Mother had little interest in being a homemaker and wanted to get a job. They had a hell of an argument about Mother going to work, but she won out and got a job selling jewelry at the Army Post Exchange. So I didn't see much of my parents, day or night. It sure suited me. My escape was progressing. At night, I protected myself with Father's late 1800s Colt Lightning .41 caliber black powder long barrel 6-shooter with which I fired caps. Father bought the Lightning when he first joined the Army in 1924 from a merchant sailor who said he got it in China. Supposedly, Lightnings were favored by Billy the Kid for its double action and the fit of the grips in his small hands. It felt great in my small hands, too. I still have that pistol.
Let's see, Captain. You went to Panama in 1940. Were you still there when the Japs attacked Pearl Harbor?
Oh yes, we were going for our Sunday drive off base when we were stopped at the gate and given the news. Father immediately reported for duty and was issued 40 rounds of ammunition with instructions to make every one count, because that's all you'll get. Since the canal could be put out of commission with a single bomb, it seemed certain that the Japs would attack in order to slow replenishment of the Pacific Fleet, which had just been decimated at Pearl Harbor. If the canal were closed, East Coast shipping to the Pacific would have to sail far out of the way around South America's fearsome Cape Horn.
What was Panama like then, Captain?
Amazing. Almost overnight, everything changed. All lights, including auto headlights, were blacked out. Hundreds of barrage balloons were put up, and searchlights lit the sky. Thousands of Orientals, or anyone with slanted eyes, were rounded up and confined to tent cities. Soon, new P-40s replaced the aging P-shooters. Large rotary ditch diggers made trenches in the jungle for us to use as air raid shelters, which soon filled up with Panama's mud, vegetation, cockroaches, malaria mosquitoes, boa constrictors, coral snakes, tarantulas, scorpions, iguanas, and every other kind of critter known to the tropics.
Was there any enemy action?
One night at 1 a.m., the air raid siren sounded. We scurried off to our jungle shelters, but thought better of joining the critters in the ditches. I'm quite sure, however, that we would have quickly jumped into those shelters had a bomb exploded. Fortunately, it was a false alarm, and there were no other similar events.
I guess you didn't get to play in the P-40s in the salvage yard.
No, but I drew hundreds of pictures of them. It is still one of my favorite warbirds. On dawn patrol takeoffs, they flew so close to my bedroom window, I could wave to the pilots and hear their radio transmissions on my AM radio. Boy, was I ever energized to be a fighter pilot. I strongly hoped that the war would last long enough for me to get into it. But I didn't get into that one or Korea, though I did eventually learn to be careful what I wish for.
How long did you remain in Panama, Captain?
Mother and I were evacuated by troop ship in February 1942 to New Orleans.
Across the Gulf of Mexico, Captain? Weren't German submarines a threat?
If there were any Kraut submarines around, they surely heard us, hopefully noting that we were all women and children, and left us alone.
Did you and your mother stay in New Orleans?
No, we took a long train ride back to Portland, Maine.
In February, after 3 years in Panama, that must have been quite a change.
You got that right, Mike. The only winter clothes we had were what the New Orleans Red Cross gave us. Mother unraveled a huge wool scarf and knit a sweater for me. It was 40 below zero for a week in Portland, so we hugged the radiators.
It was just you and your mother on your own?
No, we were taken in by a family, the parents, daughter, and granddaughter of one of Father's fellow band members. There were 6 of us in a small walk-up third-floor, 2-bedroom apartment. The granddaughter, Teresa, was a year younger than me.
I'm an only child like you, Captain, so I expect that must have been quite an adjustment for you to move in on so many strangers.
Not really. As you know, only children get a boatload of attention and judgment from amateur adults who have had no practice or incentive to learn parenting. It was a relief and a blessing for me to blend into a crowd and escape. Fortunately, the Gunnards were a warm, welcoming, easygoing family. Best of all, Teresa and I became close friends.
Was she your first girlfriend, Captain?
Yes, in a way she was, but I was only 9 years old. So it never got past a one-time you show me yours and I'll show you mine. Otherwise, it was just plain good friendship, a brand new and very valuable experience for me. I was quite a few years before I got close to another girl. But what the hell does any of this have to do with your book, Mike?
Please leave the book to me, Captain. If I intrude too deeply into your privacy, please say so and I'll back off. Otherwise, I'd like to hear your whole story and sort out the book later, okay?
All right, I suppose so, Mike. I assure you that privacy has never been an issue for me, especially now at my age. As my granny said, any publicity is good publicity. I just don't see why anyone should care.
Everyone, no matter how uneventful their lives, has a story that should be told, if for no other reason than family history. Years ago, I saw a PBS TV series production of a very highly praised autobiography that went on for many episodes about a girl growing up on the plains of Africa. The flame trees of Tika seemed to have almost no plot at all, yet I enjoyed it very much. It's all in the tellin', my granny says. Don't you agree, Captain?
I'll let you know after I read your book, okay?
Since it's your story, I don't expect you will have much criticism. Do you want a break for lunch?
No, I don't do lunch, but I'm sure Georgie will set you up in the dining room.
I don't do lunch either, Captain. Will you let me take you out to dinner one night this week?
No thanks, Mike. It's too much trouble. They're well set up for me here, and the food's suitable for an old salt who survived Navy grub. So why not join me?
I'd like that, but I'll take a rain check this evening. Since you have agreed to this, I need to unpack, set up my computer, and make some notes.
Okay, Mike. Tuesday is steak night here.
So the food's okay and the grounds are nice. What's it been like for you here?
Honestly, Mike, I can't complain. As places like this go, it's probably as good as it gets. They take pretty good care of me. Best of all, they leave me the hell alone when I wish it, which is most of the time. Of course, they make all these homes look good to the folks who put their parents in them. Thank the Lord I haven't been a burden to anyone. I'm sure life would have been unbearable hell for all concerned if any of my kids had taken me in. I was in another home for a short time before this place. It was a cross between a hospital and a jail, more like a jail. Of course, it all depends on good management and the people they are able to hire. For good reason, there are darn few people who are suited or willing to work in these places, especially for the low wages paid. I can understand their view. Who the hell would suffer the thankless frustration of working all day, every day, with crazy, decrepit, cranky, fussy old bastards like us? Not me, boy. We sure don't make it easy for them, I can tell you. It takes a very extra special, nurturing, compassionate person to do it right. There just aren't many around, bless their hearts. Some of my fellow inmates are here because they want someone to do everything for them their way, and then bitch about it. Some, like me, are here because they have no choice and bitch about it. It's the aging that's the real son of a bitch. Everything about your body craps out and hurts. Nothing is easy, and you have to rely on others a lot. Most of my life I expected sudden death, so I never planned on aging, not that a plan would have helped. The worst thing about being here for me is that I really don't care to be around all the activities and people so much, especially nosy folks who get in your face like wannabe writers who want to make a buck on your story. As you see, there are no hiding places.
Hey, Captain, go easy on me.
Okay, Mike, sorry. Just a sensitivity check to see if you were paying attention. Actually, I'm kind of glad to have you here for this. As a matter of fact, I am a wannabe writer myself, but like you with flying, I just never got around to it other than a few magazine articles and lots of dognet email. I began writing my great American novel about the time JB began his, but decided that while I could, living my story was more important than telling it. A good decision, I guess, since now you get to do all the work.
Suits me, Captain. That's why I'm here. I'm happy to meet you. I'm especially glad that you still dream of flying, as I hope you will see, in return for your story, I have one or two things to share which may be of interest to you. Perhaps an unexpected adventure.